speaker this evening is a candidate for Lieutenant Governor, Dan Forrest. Mr. Forrest will be presenting Revision, North Carolina. Thank you, Mr. Forrest, for joining us this evening. You may speak.
Well, it's great to be with you all this evening and to see so many familiar faces out here. And, how about the food tonight, huh? Pretty good stuff, right? It's always great to have a great home-cooked meal whenever you hit the road, and this is just a great place. It's a great place to be. My name is Dan Forrest, and I'm going to be your next Lieutenant Governor. And I'm going to do, the presentation I give is really not so much of a campaign presentation, but it's really a presentation about conservative values. It's a presentation about the direction that I believe we need to head in America. And so this is as much a dialogue as it is a presentation as well. So small, intimate crowd tonight. Let's feel free to ask questions, raise your hand, and don't hesitate to ask me anything along the way. I believe that we would probably all agree in this room, because we're all here like-minded for the same purposes, that we're in very trying times in our nation right now. And that I believe this is our generation 1776. And that we are truly at a tipping point moment in America. And November 6th, we're going to decide whether we tip over into socialism or we save the great American experiment. That is truly what's on the line right now. And I'd like to mention that everybody in this room is a freedom fighter. We are all fighting for that freedom. I don't think there was a time up until about the last few years where we would really sit in a room and say that and really mean it. But our freedoms are really hanging in the balance right now. And Ronald Reagan told us, and you know this quote well, that freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. And we didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream, and every generation then has to fight to pass it on to the next. Well, guess what? We are that generation that's fighting to pass it on to the next. And so we have a lot of work to do in America. Before I get started, I'll tell you a little bit about my background so you know where I'm coming from. But my background is architecture and business, not politics. I was an architect, a senior partner, and office president with the state's largest architecture firm. Worked there for 23 years, and then decided, along with my wife Alice, raise your hand, there's Alice right there, that we would leave that behind, put that job on hold for a while, and that career on hold, so we could go serve the people of North Carolina, because I believe there's a great leadership crisis in America. I believe that's why this is our generation 1776, leadership crisis. And we have a great leadership crisis in North Carolina. You look across our executive team at the state level of North Carolina, and I defy you to find the leaders there. And so we have this great leadership crisis. So we need people to step in, I believe, from the business world, to step in and run government like a business, to step in with the biblical worldview and run government the way that it was meant to be run in America. And as you mentioned in your prayer earlier, without a vision, a nation will fall. And I believe that's true for a state as well. Without a vision for our state, that state will fall. And so as an architect, as architects in general, I think we're well suited for politics. My background as an architect, a visionary, a planner, a creative problem solver, a consensus builder, and that's what I do for a living. That's what architects do for a living. I think that's what we need more of in state government. I'm going to start the conversation here with the redefinition of the value of words. I think you all know what I mean by this. Liberals have taken the value of words throughout the years and they've redefined things. I call it liberal euphemisms. And there's one that's right out front in our society or our culture right now. It's the marriage amendment. How many have heard the term Amendment 1? All hands in the room go up, Amendment 1. Where does Amendment 1 come from? Is that the name of the bill? Is it anywhere in the bill, Amendment 1? Is that what it's going to be called if it passes one way or another? No. This is called a liberal euphemism. They make up a term so that they can battle us with words. And they win this battle, and they've won this battle for many, many years. This is the marriage amendment. It's not Amendment 1. They know they can't battle the marriage amendment. So you have to change the language around. And so they use words like this. This is a slide I just call liberal euphemisms, but infanticide they call it choice. Unborn babies are non-viable tissue masses. Illegal aliens are undocumented workers. So you know where I'm going with this. Natural weather patterns are global cooling one day, global warming the next day, and then climate change when those things don't fit the bill. So we have this battle on our hands to fight, and it's not good enough, it's not enough anymore in our postmodern world. You probably all heard that term where truth is relative to much of the culture. It's not enough anymore for us to have truth and facts on our side. I wish it was. But we have to win the battle. We have to win the war of words. We have to win the PR battle. And this is one of the things I want to help do as your next Lieutenant Governor, is make sure that we craft the war of words creatively. We also need to reestablish what we stand for. Everybody in the room agrees with this, I believe, but smaller, smarter, more efficient government at every level, starting from the local level up to the state level, and doing that will put pressure on our national government to change. But this is a diagram I call Liberty Pie. It's only two slices to that piece of pie. It's government and freedom. Government and freedom. As government grows, our freedoms shrink, and so over the last 200 years, we've seen our freedoms shrinking and shrinking. And so now here we are in 2012 trying to find a way to fight to protect the very foundation of our nation. So we need to return government to smaller, smarter, more efficient 21st century brand of government. And by doing that, we need to have this conversation. This is really a conversation about federalism. It's a conversation about the 10th Amendment. It's a conversation about all of the powers that are not given to the national government and the Constitution are given to the states. Those powers belong to the states, and we need to stop mixing up our terms like states' powers and states' rights. States have powers, individuals have rights. And where do those individual rights come from? They come from God. They're inalienable rights. We declare that in our Declaration of Independence, that those rights cannot be given to us by government. They can't be taken away from us by government because they're inalienable rights. That means they're non-negotiable. We don't negotiate those rights. And so that's very important to remember. But the powers that we have as a state are also rightly ours. And we need to make sure as a state, as members of that state, as members of we are the government, remember, as members of that government, that we protect those powers that are rightfully ours. So we need bold, courageous leadership at the state level that's going to stiff arm the federal government every time they try to come into our state and tell us what we have to do as a state. Certainly Obamacare is one of those things that we better hope gets struck down, because this is the end of federalism in America. If Obamacare passes, the end of federalism is at the very beginning here in America. So something that we have to fight for. We also need to fight to return to the basics, or get back to the basics in America. This diagram, I just call it inside-out politics. It's very simple to read. You may not be able to see the back, I'll explain it to you. It just starts very simply with God at the center. It works its way out in concentric circles. You get to the outside concentric circle, and there's the issues. In political circles, we often start our dialogue at the issues and start talking about the issues. And I believe what we end up doing time and time again is putting Band-Aids, policy Band-Aids, on top of the symptoms that are caused by these issues or these problems in America. And we're not ever going to solve them until we get closer to the middle of this diagram. So returning to God, getting closer to God, closer to things like morality and truth, character, integrity, values and principles, liberty, personal responsibility. Whatever happened to personal responsibility in America? These are things we must return to in our country if we ever want to deal with the problems or the issues that we talk about on a daily basis. And then we also need to lead by and live by principle. You all have principles that you lead by and you live by every day. I hope you take the time to write them down and actually talk to people about what your principles are. If you have somebody that's a politician standing on the stage talking to you, ask them, what are the principles that you stand for? What are the values you stand for? What are the things that are most important to you that are non-negotiable? The things that no matter what's going on in the dialogue of government, we know where you're always going to stand. And we all know leaders like that have stood on principle. These are 12 that I wrote down, and they're mine, but there's probably more than 12. These are 12 that I think are important. I'm not going to read them all to you, but I'll just hit the highlights. Number one is a return to God, a return to our Judeo-Christian values in America. I think that's fundamental in our nation. Also, I believe that the right to life, the sanctity of life, is absolutely fundamental in America. Unless, well, let me put it this way. If our government is not willing to protect our very most basic rights in America, we should never assume that government will protect any other rights. This is very important. So the right to life is important. Pursuing freedom and unity in America. By that, I really just mean political incivility is at an all-time high in our country, and we need to make sure that we take a stand to return civility to the political process. I'll talk a little bit at the end here about protecting our borders. We've mentioned restoring personal responsibility, promoting marriage and family. That's natural marriage and family in America. Obviously, the marriage amendment is on the ballot on May 8th. We all need to vote for the marriage amendment. That's marriage between one man and one woman. The way God designed it, the way that the entire world has been defining it since the beginning of time. And so there's no reason that people that nowadays, intellectual elitists come into our society and tell us how we should define marriage. We need to be the definers of marriage, because that's what God finds important. And ensuring limited government, living within our means, and so on. I'll move on for the sake of time. We also need to reposition who we are. This is the Great Seal of the state of North Carolina. How many of you are familiar with this? Well, there's two dates on this seal as well. They're also on our North Carolina flag. I don't see one here, but there's two dates. Who knows what May 20th, 1775 is? Anybody know that date? These are dates that No. But good try. That's double shotting, everybody.
Halifax resolved.
Nope, good try too. May 20, 1775 is MECDEC, the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence, America's first declaration of freedom from tyranny, right down the road in Mecklenburg County. Happened right here in North Carolina. Great history in North Carolina fighting for freedom. Major day. The second one, April 12, 1776, the Halifax Resolves. The first colony to send delegates to the Continental Congress to vote for independence right here in North Carolina. Great history. There's many other things that we've done. But these are two that are on our state flag. I put them up here because we should know them for that very reason. Our state motto is Esse Convenire, to be rather than to seem. You know, the time in our world when so many people around the world are trying to look like something, trying to seem like something they're not, I believe it's time for us as North Carolinians to say, what do we stand for? What do we believe in? Because I believe, like many of you do, I believe we can change America. I believe we can save America with God's help. But I believe we can save America. And I believe it's going to happen one state at a time. And I hope North Carolina will be at the top of that list. And I hope you will be on that freedom fighting list. You know, back in the Revolutionary War, there was a battle called Stony Point. And General Anthony Wayne, you're probably all familiar with him. Waynesville's named after him, Wayne County. Wayne, Fort Wayne, everything Wayne in America. But Matt Anthony Wayne wrote a letter to General George Washington after that victory in the Revolutionary War. And he said, General, our officers and men behave like men determined to be free. Our officers and men behave like men determined to be free. My question to every audience is always, are we ready, are we willing, are we prepared to behave like men and women determined to be free? Or are we going to watch those freedoms slip away from us? That's what's on the line right now. And so who are we in North Carolina? There's obviously a million statistics about where we are in this state. But these are 9 that are important. The 3 highlighted in red are things that have to do with the lieutenant governor. And so I highlight those. I'll end on those 3 things. But we're 43rd in the nation in unemployment in North Carolina. We have a lot of work to do there. 50 is bad and 1 is good. 43, not too good. A lot of work to do. We're 35th in per capita income. We're 34th in the best state for jobs. Poverty level, we're 37th. Education, 41st in the nation in K-12 education. You know, how many education governors and lieutenant governors does it take over half century before we realize that the policies have failed our children? It's time to make some sweeping changes in education in our state. Graduation rate, 36th in the nation. Prison population, 39th. Economic ability to compete, 29th. Illegal immigration, 42nd in the nation. So I will wrap up on these 3 things. Let's talk for a minute about job creation in our state. And a good place to start that discussion is all of you are probably familiar with the fact that we have a balanced budget in North Carolina. Everybody know we have a balanced budget in our state, but there's some dirty little secrets in our state as well. One of those is a debt that's nearly $100 billion, or maybe more than $100 billion. And another one is $30 billion worth of unfunded liabilities. This is promises we've made to future generations that there's no money in the bank to pay for. $30 billion. So this is unsustainable. Only 10 states have a worse problem than North Carolina. We know who they are. They're the problem children, the poster children of bad debt in America. It's California, Wisconsin, and New Jersey, and Illinois. But we're 10th. And so we're not far behind. So we have to deal with that. We have to deal with unemployment. 17.6% unemployment. That's called U6 unemployment, or the real number that includes all the people that have stopped looking for jobs and fallen off the doles of unemployment, given up hope, all the people that are underemployed. This is the real number in North Carolina. It's much worse than this in many rural communities. And so the real problem, the biggest problem, is the same problem that most counties have and most states have and now most countries in the world have because of the lack of responsibility, but it's spending. Spending is the real problem. This chart just represents our general fund spending in North Carolina. If you just look at the yellow bars and the blue line, that tells the whole story. The yellow bars are our general fund right now, $20 billion. Had we started in 1980, which represents the time frame here, 1980 to 2010, 30 years, if we started in 1980 and we said we were going to hold constant for population growth plus inflation spending, if we did just that one thing, our general fund budget would be $10 billion right now. Half of what it is. It's $20 billion. It would be $10 billion. So we have a spending problem. We're spending way too much money. It's not that we don't have enough revenue to pay for the things that government does. Government does too much. It takes too much money out of our pockets. So what do? I believe we need to limit government spending to an increase in population and inflation. This is what I was saying a minute ago. Go ahead and do that now. That's a stopgap measure. That doesn't solve the problem. That just stops the spending from increasing at an unreasonable rate in the future. We also need to, I believe, eliminate the corporate income tax in North Carolina, drop the rate right now to half of what it is, and then eventually eliminate it over time. These things don't happen with a light switch. They don't happen overnight. They happen over time. I believe we also need to reduce our gas tax to be competitive with our southeast neighbors. So we have, in North Carolina, you probably don't know this, but Tax Foundation has a ranking, and Tax Foundation says that we are 44th in the nation in business tax climate. Only 6 states in America have a worse business tax climate than North Carolina. Only 6. And so we have the highest corporate income tax rate in the Southeast. We have the highest gas tax rate in the Southeast. We have one of the highest personal income tax rates in the country. 90% of our businesses, small businesses, file in the personal income tax. Our businesses, small businesses, are being punished by the fact that we have one of the highest personal income tax rates in the country. So we need to create a personal income tax bracket for small businesses so they can flourish. And I'm going to move on for the sake of time again. Education, I already mentioned that we're 41st in the nation in K-12 education. And this chart just shows that funding is not the issue. Liberals want to come out now and say we don't have enough money for education. Well, over the last 40 years, education spending has increased 375% in North Carolina. 375%. Quality has not increased in education, but the amount of money has. And so it costs us $13,000 a year to educate one student in public education for a year. It costs us $8,000 for that same student to go to a charter school because they don't get the capital expenditures. And it costs, on average, $6,000 to educate that same student in a private school in North Carolina. So for less than half of what we can educate a student for in public school, we can educate them for in private school. So what is the problem? The problem is called 4,000 bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. at the Department of Education, and 800 bureaucrats in Raleigh at the Department of Public Instruction telling you right here in Allegheny County how to educate your children. That's the real problem. It's not that funding is the issue. The funding is going to the wrong places. So we need to right size that model again, turn it right side up, make sure that the control of education is going back to the local communities. And we do that by ending the state government controlled monopoly of education and introducing choice. I believe we should put vouchers in the hands of the parents, allow them to make decisions for education for their children. That increases competition, it increases quality, it decreases costs, and most importantly, it creates innovation, because the innovation is what spurs competition. And so when we get innovation in education, we will see the education light bulb come on in North Carolina, and we'll see things that we've never seen before. And so we have to break that education monopoly. We also need to create a curriculum to compete in the global economy. I think you'd all agree with that now. We're in the 21st century. We're still teaching things the same way that we were teaching them 100 years ago. We need to change that model. I'm not going to go into detail on that, but I'll take any questions you may have about that in a minute. Again, moving on. Illegal immigration, we're 42nd in the nation, as I mentioned. These are the culprits that are above us right now. Only 8 states, as I mentioned, somewhere between 600,000 and 1.2 million people in our state illegally right now. Why don't we know the real number? Because we don't ask the question. So people can come from other countries illegally into our country. They can use our emergency rooms as a primary care physicians. They can go to our schools without any questions being asked, and so on and so forth. So we need to begin to ask the question. But on the fiscal side, at the very minimum, it costs our state $1.3 billion a year. 1.3 billion at the very minimum. That's 1/5 of our general fund budget. Civitas says it could cost as much as 2.3 billion. That's 1/10 of our general fund budget. And our politicians have had their head in the sand on this issue for years in our country, not just our state, but our country as well. So I want to be the point person on the executive team in Raleigh to deal with this issue, because this is a critical issue for our state. Not an easy one to solve. If it was, it would be solved by now. But just looking at some more fiscal issues, at a minimum $130 million for non-reimbursements to doctors and hospitals, $49 million to incarcerate prisoners, and a whopping $975 million to educate the students of children, or the children of parents who come here illegally. $1 billion right there on the table for education. We say we don't have enough money for education, and yet we're educating people that are not even citizens of our country, not even here legally as citizens. He's not a citizen. So what do we do about that? We need to implement E-Verify for all employers in North Carolina, not just those that have 25 employees or more. That's what the General Assembly did. I don't think that's enough, because 90% of our businesses don't have that issue to deal with. Funding the 287G program in all North Carolina jails, which begins to eliminate the criminal element off the street. That's a very important thing. We need to pass voter ID, which I believe will happen with a Republican governor and a Republican General Assembly next time. I think that'll happen day 1. But we need to do that. It's absolutely critical to safeguard our free and fair elections. We need to mandate English as the official language of North Carolina. Very important for assimilation into our culture. So we need to mandate that, so we make sure that that happens. Those are some of the things that we can do right away. And so I will end up, I'm actually going to wrap up right there for the sake of time. Again, you go to our website, danforrest.com. Feel free to sign up there and become part of our team. Just as a point of interest, If you're interested, we have Steve Forbes is coming to do a fundraiser for us on May the 6th. That'll be in Charlotte. So we'd love for anybody that wants to come to that, just let us know. We'd be happy to sign you up for that as well. And you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter and all that kind of stuff. But if anybody has any questions, I'll take a couple. And I just want you to know, too, before I wrap up, we're going to have to leave. We've got to get back to Raleigh tonight because I have to start real early in the morning again. So I'm sorry they'll have to run out, but thanks for having us. Yes, sir.
Yeah, for years, federal government, states and state money, the federal government is called revenue sharing. And until you stop that process, you're never going to be able to crack that stuff. Because what happens is we send the money to Washington and then they dole it out. And if you don't behave, they don't dole it out. So the states have to stand up and say, we're not going to send you this revenue sharing portion of it. So, and then you can get rid of some of this stuff.
Yeah, revenue sharing. Isn't that funny? Take your money,
Right.
use it however they want to, and then they send you back pennies on the dollar.
If you're good boys, they dole it out. If you're not, then they hold it back. It's a constant threat to the states. You've got to get out of there.
Yeah, and our founding fathers believed just the opposite. The fight over federalism, the fight between the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists was all about states' powers. And the states, they knew that the national government would make this power grab, as they have done through the years. And so we have to continue to fight to protect that. You're exactly right.
You got to get with the Board of Education or the federal education.
Just quickly to respond to that, I think one of the places we really have to craft our words wisely is kind of this elimination kind of theology, say we get rid of something or eliminate something. We need to say things like, we need to replace the Department of Education with a more efficient 21st century version of the Department of Education. That leaves it wide open for us to do the things that we need to do, but as Republicans, conservatives, if we go in and say we're going to eliminate, then we're the children haters, we're the education haters of America. You hate kids because you want to get rid of the Department of Education. And that's how they play it, but we need to be smart, we need to be wise with our words and how we craft it. Yes, ma'am.
As Lieutenant Governor, what actions would you be able or willing to take to protect the citizens of North Carolina from the effects of the National Defense Authorization Act?
Well, listen, there are no specific responsibilities for Lieutenant Governor on that front, but Lieutenant Governor is a loud vocal mouthpiece for the state. I mean, one of the things that we really like about that position is that you don't report to the governor, you don't report to the General Assembly, you report to the people of North Carolina. You have the ability then to go out and be a loud mouthpiece, a loud spokesman for what the people of North Carolina find important. So whatever those issues happen to be, you lift those issues up and you tout them loudly for people. That's what a lieutenant governor should do. It shouldn't be a holding pattern for governor. It shouldn't be 4 years of doing nothing or playing golf like our current lieutenant governor does, so that he can become governor one day. That's the way it's been used, and that's not right. Joy.
What would you do to promote the charter school system, or I showed they only get a fraction of what public schools get, and they do so much more. My daughter got into the charter school in Surrey County, and they do everything more than a public school would, better, on less money, and I would like to know would that be expanded, or?
Well, I would be a loud vocal proponent as a member of the state school board by constitution. The lieutenant governor sits on that state school board, and a loud vocal proponent of school choice. I mean, that's really what breaking that monopoly is all about, is putting a voucher in the hands of the parents deciding whether they want to send their kids to a charter school, a traditional public school, a magnet school, a home school, whatever a private school, whatever that happens to be. And putting that choice in the parents' hands, I think, is absolutely critical. Now, what I believe about charter schools, I believe charter schools are a great thing. I believe lifting the cap is a great thing, but I also believe it's a stopgap measure. We have charter schools because we're not really willing to deal with the real public school problem. We have to deal with the real problem. We have to deal with the real problem. And once we deal with that problem, we won't have a need for charter schools anymore. Charter schools are great, but we have to deal with the real problem. So one last question. Anybody have anything else? All right, y'all, I need to crowd. Thank y'all very much. We appreciate you having us out, Brandon. Thank you for having me. And sorry we have to run. But